Hello everybody, I'm going to show you how to use Creo import to do an analysis in ANSYS using the 2D settings. So once you set up your working directory and everything, what we do is start a new file, anything you can call it, but I'm going to go ahead and call it a test. It's fine. Say OK. Now when we get here, what's important is that you select a plane that crosses the XYZ origin, and I find it helpful to use the front plane because when it imports it into ANSYS, it kind of changes its orientation, and this makes it easier to kind of see when we get there. So we're going to go ahead and make a sketch here. I think right now my units are in millimeters. Actually, let me check that real quick. Go to File, Manage Properties, Material Properties. No, I'm in inch pound seconds. So if you want to match me, I'm in IPS. So I'm going to close that out and go back into the sketch here. So from here, we're going to do something really simple, nothing too wild. I'm just going to make a rectangle here, and it starts out really big, and make that 5 inches by 2 inches. So it's a 5 inch by 2 inch rectangle. Nope, that's not what I wanted to click. And then I'm just going to put a hole here on this axis. You can make it a 1 inch and make it 1 inch over from the edge. Say OK. Now, you cannot import 2D sketches into ANSYS, or at least I haven't figured it out. Maybe somebody will comment and tell me how I'm doing everything wrong, but this is how I've been able to do it. So what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and extrude it, but what's important here for a step later on in ANSYS is that we change this from extruding from the plane in a normal direction. We want to do a symmetric extrusion. They call it extrude on both sides. In some other softwares, I'm more familiar with SolidWorks, it called it a symmetric extrusion. Just give it some number, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to do 1 inch, and we'll go ahead and be done with that. So at this point you could save your model. It's test. Now we want to go back in here and do a save as, and the best file that everybody says is for importing into ANSYS is a .sat file. I have no idea what the format is because I'm more used to like an IGES or a step file, but everybody says that's the best. Just hit OK. You want to hover over your extrusion and then click on it. You notice you have all your green lines all the way around it. If you find that when you click on it, sometimes it'll just click one face, it usually doesn't work that well. So I would cancel it, try to do it again, and make sure that it kind of, you can tell that it picks the entire model. So we're going to go ahead and export it. Depending on the size of your model, it may take longer. Mine doesn't take very long, but down here at the bottom you see that it says that it created the test.sat. So now we've done that, we're going to go into ANSYS here and do click and drag a static structural. At this point you can call it whatever you want. I keep it the same. I'm not really all that interested in that. What you want to do is right click here and say import geometry, browse. Depending on where you saved your file, you're going to find your SAT file, and that's our SAT file that we created just now. Go ahead and open it. At this point, what we want to do is go ahead and say edit geometry and design modeler. This is going to open up design modeler. So now in here, once you've done that, you'll find these two check marks for your import. When you hit generate, now we can see our model. It looks pretty awesome. So at this point you can change your units if you need to. It's usually not all that important. But now remember that we did an extrusion and we did an asymmetric, a symmetric extrusion where the center plane actually lies right here in the center, and that's pretty important when you're doing a 2D analysis in ANSYS. So with that, what we're going to do is go in here to tools and do a mid surface. you're gonna make sure that your selection is on face. It should automatically do that, but if it's not, just make sure that it does. So we're going to select it and then rotate to the other side and hold control and hit the other side. And I don't know why you have to hold control when it should know that you need to click two faces, but you have to hold control to do this, and then hit apply. So now both of these faces are selected. But you see here that we now have a lightning bolt, so that tells us we need to go ahead and generate. And now you can see we have a basically our 2D sketch of our part. So from here we can go ahead and close Design Modeler. If you want, you can save everything as you go. But now here in geometry, what we want to do is we want to change this analysis type to 2D. So now we're in a 2D analysis. So we'll right click on the model, edit. So this is going to open up the analysis settings, the analysis window. Once it loads up here. Now when you rotate your view, it's a 2D sketch basically. So this is a cool trick if you don't know. If you select the axis arrow, you can actually get it to face you. So from here, what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and tell it to make a mesh. This mesh isn't this mesh isn't all that fine, but you can play around with the sizing here if you need to. We can do that right now if we want to. So our minimum size is on a default. We can go ahead and tell it to do like a 1/2 inch or something. Let's see what happens. And update. I may have been doing this wrong. Update. Delete. Do it. 2.5. Generate mesh. There it goes. Okay. Anyway, it didn't really do much. So we can make that even smaller if we want. 1/8 of an inch. I don't know. Generate mesh. No, it still didn't do anything. Oh, you got no. Minimum edge length. I think that's what I'm supposed to know. That's not gonna change it. Anyway, I'm not too familiar with that. But anyway, you can change the mesh size once you're into this. But going back to the static structural, what you want to do is do a fixed support. And here you want to change from face to edge. So we're going to click that edge, hit apply, and now our fixed support is on that edge. And to do any kind of analysis, we also need a load. So we're going to go ahead and make a load, and I'm going to put it right here in this hole. And once you selected the edge, hit apply, and we want to change this vector type to component. Now you see here that we only have X and Y coordinates. That's because it's a 2D analysis. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this a 20-pound force. It's nothing too important. It doesn't really have to be. From here, what we want to do is import stress and do equivalent von Mess and import stress, and you can do max principal. And now that you have all that set up, you can go ahead and tell it to solve. And as soon as it's done solving, you'll have your stresses based on the 2D stress analysis. Nothing too difficult or anything. So I hope this helps. If you have any recommendations or if you have any tips, let me know, and I'll update the video. Thanks.